My husband died on a Wednesday morning in February. The ground was frozen. I remember that specifically because when the men came to dig, they had to work longer than usual, and I stood at the kitchen window watching them, holding a cup of coffee I never drank, thinking about all the Wednesdays of our life together, 43 years of Wednesdays. Eli making his coffee before dawn, the sound of the percolator, his boots on the floor, the particular creak of his chair at the head of the table. 43 years, and I had never once thought about what a Wednesday morning would feel like without him in it. 3 weeks after the funeral, my son Daniel came to help me go through Eli's things. The desk in the corner of the bedroom, the one I had never opened, not in 40 years of marriage, not because I was forbidden. Eli never forbade me anything, but because it was his. And in our world, what belongs to a man belongs to him, and I had learned very young not to reach for what was not offered. Daniel pulled open the bottom drawer, and there it was, not one ledger, 39 of them, stacked in order, each one dated on the spine in Eli's handwriting. The first one starting the year we were married, the last one ending the week before he went into the hospital for the last time. I stood there holding the top one, and I could not breathe. I had been married to this man for 4 decades. I thought I knew him completely. I was 80 years old, and I had never been so wrong about anything in my life. Stay with me, because what I found inside those ledgers is going to stay with you. My name is Anna. I am 81 years old. I grew up Old Order Amish in Shipshewana, Indiana. I have been out of the community for 3 years, and this channel, Hannah, the Amish girl, is where I finally say what I spent a lifetime learning to keep quiet. If you want to hear more truths like this one, subscribe now and tap the like button, and drop your city or your country in the comments. I read every single one. Now let me tell you who Eli was, because this part matters for everything that comes after. Eli Yoder was 62 years old when he died. I married him when I was 38 and he was 39. We were considered old for Amish marriage. Both of us had spent years wondering if we were meant to marry at all. He had cared for his mother through a long illness. I had cared for my father after my mother passed. When we finally found each other at a church gathering in the fall of 1981, we did not fall into it the way young people do. We walked in slowly, deliberately, the way you approach something you do not want to break. Our courtship lasted 14 months, long by community standards. When Bishop Weaver married us on a Thursday morning in January 1982, I was 38 years old, and I had never been more certain of anything. Eli was a furniture maker. He worked in a shop behind our house, building cabinets and chairs and tables that people drove from 3 counties away to buy. He was not a man of many words. In 40 years of marriage, I do not think he ever raised his voice to me, not once. When he was troubled, he went quiet. When he was grateful, he went quiet in a different way, softer around the eyes. And if you knew him well enough, you could read the difference. I knew him well enough, or I believed I did. That is the thing about a person who does not talk much. You fill in the spaces yourself. You become so certain of your interpretation that you stop questioning whether you have it right. Our neighbors used to say Eli was a man who let his hand speak for him, and they were right. But I know now there was a third language he was speaking that none of us ever heard, not even me. I want to explain something about Amish life in the 1980s, specifically about privacy and marriage, because it shapes everything I am about to tell you. In my community, the interior life of a person was not something to be shared freely. We did not have the language for it, and we did not have the habit. Emotions were expressed through work, through presence, through service. A husband who worked hard for his family was loving his family. That was the vocabulary. You did not say the words if the actions were already speaking. And because the actions were constant, and because I had been taught since childhood to receive that form of love without questioning its depth or its texture, I received it. I did not ask what was underneath. Eli fixed every fence, filled every lamp, sat beside me every evening with his coffee, and I accepted that as the full sentence. It never occurred to me that there was a second sentence he was writing somewhere else. Every night for 40 years after supper, after family prayer, after the house went quiet, Eli would take his ledger from the drawer, sit at his desk, and write. I saw him do it 10,000 times. I never asked what he was writing. He never told me. In our world, this was not suspicious. It was private. And privacy was respected because privacy was how men held their dignity. I tell you this now so you understand that when I opened that first ledger, I was not opening something that had been hidden from me out of secrecy. I was opening 40 years of a man's interior life that I had simply never been invited into. And the difference between those two things, between hidden and simply never shared, took me a long time to understand. The first ledger was from 1982, our first year of marriage. His handwriting then was different, smaller, more careful, like a man still deciding how much space he was allowed to take up on a page. I sat on the edge of the bed and I read. He did not write about events. He did not write what happened at church or what the weather did or how many chairs he finished in the shop. He wrote about me. He wrote about me every single night. January 14th. Anna made the bean soup with the smoked ham. I watched her at the stove and I thought, this woman is the most capable person I have ever been near. I do not know how to tell her that. So I ate 2 bowls, and she laughed and asked if I wanted a third. And I said no, because I did not know how to say that what I actually wanted was to sit at that table for the rest of my life and watch her cook. I set the book down on my knee. I sat for a long time without moving. Then I picked it up again. February 3rd. Anna woke in the night with a cough and did not wake me. I know this because I heard her in the kitchen making her tea, and I lay still so she would not feel watched. She has this way of handling her own discomfort alone, quietly, like she does not want to trouble the air around her. I want to tell her she can trouble whatever she needs to trouble. I have not said it. I should say it. I read for 3 hours that first night. I could not stop. Here was a man I had shared a bed with for 4 decades, a man whose breathing I knew better than my own, a man whose hands I had held through the death of 2 of our children and the births of 5 others, and he had been writing a love letter to me every night for 40 years, and I had never known it. And here is the part that broke something open in me that I am still putting back together. He was not writing to be found. He had no plan for me to read those ledgers. He was not composing letters he hoped to one day give me. He was just telling the truth privately, the only way he knew how, into the pages of a book he kept in a drawer. That is the kind of love that asks nothing back. I did not know that kind of love existed. I thought I had been living inside it. I had not understood its full size until I held the evidence of it in my hands. What happened over the next 11 Sundays, I cannot carry it in 20 minutes. There are things this recording cannot hold. The names, the counting, the drawer, the dress I kept for 27 years. 3 years ago, I wrote it all down. The book is called The Sundays. Link in the description and in the pinned comment. By the third ledger, 1984, his handwriting had loosened. He was more comfortable taking up space on the page. He wrote longer. He wrote about our daughter Ruth, who was born that spring, and how, when he held her in the hospital, he looked across the room at me, lying in that bed, exhausted and pale, and already asking the nurse if she could have the baby back. And he wrote, "I thought I understood what it meant to love someone before tonight. I did not." He wrote about the year the shop nearly failed, 1991. We did not discuss it much at the time because we were both frightened, and in our household, fear was something you carried privately so as not to multiply it. But in the ledger he wrote, "I am scared in a way I have no practice for, not of losing the shop, of Anna seeing me fail." And then 4 months later, when the shop recovered, when he landed the contract with the furniture store in Goshen, he wrote, "I told Anna tonight. She said, 'I knew you would figure it.' I cannot explain what those 7 words did to me. I have been carrying them for a month." He had carried 7 words I said at the supper table for a month. I had forgotten saying them before the week was out. That is the thing I keep returning to. He was building a record of us that I had no idea existed. Every small moment I had lived through and let go, he had held on to. He was the keeper of everything I had released. And I did not know I needed a keeper. I had thought I was the one doing the holding. I had thought I was the memory of our family, the one who kept track of who said what and on what day and in what light. And in many ways I was. But the deeper record, the one that documented not what happened, but what it meant to him that it happened, that record belonged entirely to Eli. He was the archivist of our love. And he never told me. I need to tell you about 1998. That was the year our son Benjamin left. He was 22. He did not leave quietly. There was a gathering, a confrontation, the kind of rupture that does not heal cleanly. For those of you who have lived inside an Amish community, you know what shunning means in practice. You know the particular silence of a table with one fewer chair. Benjamin was gone, and our community's expectation was that we would observe the proper distance and pray for his return. What the community did not see was what happened in our kitchen the night he left. Eli sat at the table until very late, not speaking, and I sat across from him, also not speaking. And at some point his hand crossed the table and covered mine, and we stayed like that until the lamp burned low. I remembered that night when I read what he wrote. May 14th, 1998. Benjamin took his bag and walked down the road, and I watched from the window until I could not see him anymore. I do not know how to be a father who has failed his son. I do not know if I failed him, or if the community failed him, or if the whole structure failed all of us, and we were simply the ones paying the cost tonight. I know that Anna's hand was warm when I held it. I know that is not enough. I know it is also everything I have. I read that entry 4 times. I read it the way you read something that explains a memory you had wrong. I had always thought of that night as a night of 2 people who did not know what to say to each other. I read his ledger and understood it differently. We had said everything. We had just said it through our hands. A woman in my old community, Miriam, she is 74 now, and still inside, she came to visit me after Eli's funeral. We sat on my porch, and she said he was a good man. And I said yes. And she said quiet men are hard to know. And I said yes, they are. But I was thinking something I did not say out loud. I was thinking, I know now. I know him now in a way I could not have known him while he was alive. Because while he was alive, I was living inside the story and could not read it. The ledgers gave me the angle. They gave me the distance you need to see something clearly. What I have spent the last 2 years sitting with is this. Eli was not a man who could not express love. He expressed it every night. He expressed it in 39 ledgers, in 39 years of precise, careful, patient documentation of everything I was to him. What he could not do was say it aloud, to my face in the room where I was standing. And I do not blame him for that, because I was the same. I thanked him by making his soup right and hanging his shirt straight and laying my hand over his when the lamp burned low. We had the same limitation, the same Amish silence, and we each found a private way to hold what we could not release into the open air. The difference is that his way left a record, and mine did not. I have thought about that difference every single day since, because it means he gets to keep speaking. Even now, 3 years after the ground took him, Eli is still telling me things, still showing me who he was. And I am only now, at 81, learning to hear him clearly. My granddaughter Sadie is 26. She grew up in the community, but she moved out 4 years before I did. She called me the week after I found the ledgers, and I told her what was in them. And she was quiet for a long time. And then she said, "Grandma, why didn't he just tell you?" And I said, because no one ever told him that he was allowed to. Because in our world, a man's feelings lived in his hands and his work and the things he built and the fences he fixed and the space he showed up in every single day without being asked, and putting it into words, saying, "I love you," because of exactly this. I love the way you do not want to trouble the air. Saying that out loud in the kitchen over the bean soup, that was not part of the language he was given. He had to invent a private language. He invented one. He just never taught it to me. I think about that, about how much of our life together we lived in the same house, speaking different dialects of the same silence. How much he held in those ledgers that I held nowhere, that dissolved into the days like salt into water, and left no record at all. I think about whether we were lonely for each other even while we were together. I think we might have been. And I also think that what I felt sitting beside him on that porch in the evenings, the particular rightness of it, the sense of being held without being touched, that was real. Both things were real. That is what I have learned at 81. That a marriage can be full and also have a space in it shaped exactly like the words that never got said. Sadie was quiet after I said that. Then she said, "I want a love like that." And I said, "Then find someone who will invent a language for you, even if it takes them 40 years to teach it to you. Even if you have to find it in a drawer after they are gone, with no explanation and no warning." The love was still real. The love was real the whole time. The ledger from the last year, 2021, is the one I have read most. His handwriting had changed again by then, slower, slightly uneven, the way hands go when the body has been working for over 60 years without rest. But he wrote until November. The last entry is dated November 9th. 3 weeks before he went into the hospital, he wrote, 40 years. I have been trying to count up what I have been given, and I keep losing count because the number is too large for the column. Anna this morning at the window with her coffee, the light coming in from the east, and I thought, I am the luckiest man who ever lived inside a quiet life. I just want her to know that. I hope somehow she knows it. I set the book down when I read that. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, the same bed where we slept for 40 years, and I looked at the window where I had been standing that morning in the light, not knowing he was watching, not knowing he was counting, not knowing that the ordinary moment of a woman at a window with her coffee was being held by someone who understood its value better than she did. And I talked to him, out loud, alone in that room, to a man 3 weeks in the ground. I said, Eli, I knew. I think I always knew. I just did not have the ledger to prove it. If you have someone in your life who holds you in a language you cannot quite read, sit with them a little longer. Ask the question you have been saving for later. Later is a thing we borrow, and one day the loan comes due. I have 39 ledgers and a window, and a memory of a man watching me from a room I could not see into. It is enough. It is more than I deserve and exactly what I needed. If no one in your world has ever taken the trouble to count what you are worth, I am telling you now, you are worth the counting. Every ordinary morning of you. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you are holding that you have not said yet. Tell me if you have someone like Eli or if you wish you did. And if you want to keep hearing from behind the prayer cap, subscribe to Hannah the Amish Girl. I have so many more truths still waiting. Until next time. What happened over the next 11 Sundays, what 20 minutes cannot hold, is in the Sundays. Link in the description and in the pinned comment. The morning is yours, if you decide it is. Choose your freedoms wisely. They might just save your life.